With the chastening, we are called. Will we stay steadfast? Will we stay true? Can we be glad that we were chosen? With the chastening, we are tumbled and tossed and overturned again and again and again. For our rough edges must be smoothed out, our consciousness purified, and our spiritual muscles strengthened. Morning Muse, July 20th, 2019. In this video, we are exploring what is meant by spiritual chastening. It seems to be a subject that is rarely talked about or even mentioned sometimes, and yet to those dedicated to awakening to their true identity and whose soul is prepared, it is a given after experiencing illumination. Following are excerpts from the writings and talks of 3 other messengers of the Absolute with their perspective. As you listen, please remember that you are hearing the voice of yourself, speaking to yourself, for there is only one self and one consciousness. To those of us going through the chastening, remember we signed up for this. May we not judge or resist the trials that are divinely sanctioned, as we know that the more we allow them to happen, to pass through our experience, strengthening us, strengthening our conviction, almost forcing us into recognition of the onlyness of perfection and the newness of the higher mansions, the less will be our apparent suffering. And the sooner will we come out on the other side with and as grace, with much more visible manifestation of the light that we are. Marie Watts had this to say about her experience after periods of illumination. Quote, "And you know, I seem to have to go through many unhappy, unhealthy experiences after this. But each unhappy or unhealthy experience was only the life that was insisting upon revealing more of itself, to be the consciousness that is the self, the I that I am. I know this now. You know it too." End quote. And Herb Fitch, in one of his talks, said, "It takes time to develop this standing fast, and there must be the chastening." Joel used to say he lost 2 fortunes. It built up again. He lost his health quite a number of times. It came back again. Always the initiation is to stand in your own essence and let it do all the work, while you resolutely refrain from any concept about the good of it or the bad of it, knowing the fullness of God is present, doing its job, and that is your responsibility. From that, the chastening takes effect. The spiritual muscles are built. You find the power of grace is dependable. End quote. Now I will read chapter 8 in Walter Lanyon's book, The Temple Not Made with Hands, called The Chastening. Quote, "Despise not the chastening of the Lord." End quote. At each new elevation comes the chastening, the refining of the instrument and its way of expression. This chastening carries none of the ugly implications of the scourge or punishment, but rather the reorientation and reassigning of things to their rightful evaluation on the higher level. Quote, "Whereas before I was blind, now I can see." End quote. I can see where I am. I can see and understand that which I have been blindly seeking, because my sight has been chastened. Focused to a finer point of perception, extended, as it were. I can see things which were formerly vague and nebulous. Quote, "Whatever ye see or hear or know was eons old before ye heard it." End quote. The chastening is gentle, yet firm. Quote, "My son," end quote. It seems always to start with that salutation. What a richness and love in the very imagined tone of any father saying just that, "My son." There is an implication of protection and a beautiful recognition of relationship, a warmth of love which enfolds like soft wings. It is the mother quality coming into embodiment in the father. My son. Can you hear? It is speaking of you. Your attention is turned from the picture of chaos, my son, if you will, and then follows the magic revelation. The magic formulae is given, and you surrender, not to punishment, but to the revelation of the how. You enter a new tempo which carries you safely into a new day. Quote, "My father taught me, and I know that manners are the cloak of dignity, and dignity is man's awareness of his own soul." End quote. Early Greek. And now some of the grosser and more gauche movements must be replaced or resolved into perhaps lesser action with more definite and sure results. Glancing at the, quote, "former things which are passed away," end quote, much of the former success seems now to have been clumsy and labored. A new tempo has entered in the space between, foreshortened to a vanishing point. At a single gesture now, months of human thought are approximated, and that which is, actually is. The fields are literally white, even though it is impossible and cannot take place. A new technique has entered, a technique which cannot be set down in words, but which can be felt, pressing upon the diaphragm of consciousness, a sudden feeling of the presence. The Father keeps refining and guiding his Son, not as a punishment, but to cause him to be capable of higher and more outstanding results. If it were not that greater revelations were to be made to him and manifested through him, he would not bother to chasten. And so the word, quote, "Whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth," end quote. He purifies and deletes the dross of human thought so that we might be fit for the kingdom. Quote, "Now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness." End quote. Yes, it is something to be chosen for this chastening. When the former pictures begin to break up, you do not care, knowing that the atoms are to be reassembled into a new picture. For the chastening is transmuted into loving revelation. There is no time to consider the consummation of Sodom and Gomorrah. Quote, "Let the filthy be filthy still." End quote. What is that to thee? On the very next hilltop, there is a new city whose maker is God. It is your city, set upon the hill, and can no longer be hid from you. You have to be loved to be chastened, and when you recognize this, there is rejoicing and calmness with the changing conditions. The breaking shell may seem like dissolution, but it frees the bird. as the musician who has already been acclaimed master of his instrument goes again and again to fundamentals and practices the inner laws that he may better interpret that which he already knows, so the master disciplines his sons that they may find in the old word forms new fountains of living waters in the desert made dry by repetition of dead letters. When the chastening is recognized as the wonderful guiding light it is, then in this effulgence the passing of things is seen as the dropping off of so much excess baggage. The new old action is compared with the former as it passes away, is like the action of electricity as compared to the labored movements of the untrained, unskilled muscular power of man. All the questioning will go. The why, the how, the what have I done to deserve this? And the comparing of patterns with another. All of it. The moment you transfer the power from punishment to love, a welling up of joy within takes place within your surrender, plus the integrity to follow through causes the miracle to take place, the miracle of love. Quote, "What will you have me to do, Lord? Here am I. Send me. My son, my son, my son. Do you hear? Here am I, in the midst of you, my son. This is the way. Walk ye in it, and despise not the chastening of the Lord."